Another day, another Midwestern city, this time Cincinnati, Ohio. I've spent approximately 0 time here. My last real day on this trip through the Midwest. Once again, one of those situations where I don't know what I'm gonna play. Don't really know what's running. Just gonna head down there, see what there is to hop in and get going. One of my good buddies from the text message group, the famed text message group, lives here. His name is JJ, so I'll be meeting up with him at some point, either here at the casino or maybe afterwards for a beverage. Just going with the flow, wherever the wind takes us, whichever game we end up in, that's what we're gonna play. Oh, and by the way, this is the Jack Casino, Cincinnati, Ohio. Jack Casino. Interesting name. My first experience with a Jack Casino, so let's get in there. Haven't exactly had ideal weather here in the Midwest, but what is there to be expected exactly? All right, chilling here in the poker room. Pretty nice poker room here, pretty sizable. I'm not sure exactly how many tables they have here, but pretty nice space. Good dealers, comfy chairs, decor on point, all that stuff. So I've been playing the PLO for about 3 hours now, and a couple hands to report here real quick. First interesting one, the under the gun player makes it $15. Oh, and by the way, it's 1-2-5, so $5 bring in. The initial raise is up to $15. So in the first one, the under the gun player makes it a blind 15. I looked down at 7-7-6-5 double suited, just next to him. And I kind of want to narrow the field, I think, with this hand. I obviously don't have any nut suits. So a double suited rundown hand with a pair in it. I think I want to try and narrow the field a little bit. I don't want too many callers, so I think a 3-bet makes sense. So I make it 45. There's a caller to my left, and the initial blind raiser makes the call. So 3 ways to a flop. Flop is King, Queen, 3, rainbow. Checks to me. I feel like a C-bet is okay here. I feel like the King, Queen high flop should hit my range fairly well normally. So I put in a C-bet. I don't think I need to make it that big since the board is so dry. So I just bet $65 as a C-bet. The player 2 to my left calls, and the player on my right folds. So heads up to a turn. Turn is a 4 of spades. So we add the flush draw and we add a wrap. So pretty gin card for us, aside from maybe a 7. So gives me a pretty good barreling opportunity here, I think. And so I just go ahead and I bet the pot, which is $275. He thinks for quite some time, and then he makes the call. So looking for some help on the river here, and it does not come. River is another king, offsuit king. Pretty sure I don't have the best hand here. 7s are unlikely to win. I don't feel like he's that strong, but it's just kind of a guess, kind of a read-based guess. So I feel like if I put in a small bet, there's maybe some pairs that I can get to fold. I'm obviously never folding out a king, so I think a small bet does okay here. So I go ahead and bet $175. He goes into the tank, thinks for quite some time, and then he says, nice value bet, I call. So that's a little unfortunate. I roll it over and he shows ace queen. Didn't see his other side cards, but he turned the nut flush draw, so our spade outs were dead. He makes a bit of a crying call with the 2-pair top kicker. Not sure if a bigger bet would have got the job done. I didn't have too much more behind, so maybe I had twice what I bet in my stack going into the river, so not too much more that I could have bet. Not sure if that would have got the job done either way, but didn't really work out this time. All right, one more hand of notes to run through real quick before we jump back in there. So in this hand I had the straddle on, which questionable as to whether there's any value in that in PLO, but as long as some other people are doing it in the PLO game, I'm happy to do it in the PLO game as well. So there's several limps, 3 or 4, and the action is on the big blind who kicks it up to $30. I looked down at Queen Jack Jack X, Queen Jack Jack 4 maybe. Questionable, questionable call, questionable, pretty marginal hand. Could easily see throwing this one away, but having a high-ish pair, I feel like it's okay with nobody opening the action originally, with everyone limping in a single raise pot and having position on the initial raiser and expecting the rest of the action to just call rather than get re-raised behind me, which who knows, I don't know if that thinking is worthwhile at all. This is my PLO brain at work, which is not very developed, but I feel like having one suit and having a high pair allows for some set over set possibilities. So I go ahead and make the call, and everyone else calls as well. So we're going 7 ways to a flop here. Flop is favorable. Flop is Jack 5-3 with 2 spades. There's 2 checks to me, and definitely looking to put in a bet here. Don't want the action to check through. So I go ahead and put out a bet of $175. Folds to the button who makes the call, and everyone else folds. So heads up to a turn card. Turn is the king of spades. Not the ideal card, not the card I had in mind. So I don't have too much money left behind. I decided to check it over to him, and he puts out a bet, and it's enough to put me all in. So I don't really have too much behind at this point. I only have $300 or $350 left behind. So the player on the button is a bit of an action player. He plays a lot of hands, almost every hand, and it's not that great of a situation considering the fact that we don't block any spades, but there's some small chance that he doesn't have spades. Not a very big chance, I would say, but some chance. Maybe he had some sort of a combo draw with a low straight draw, low wrap of some sort, plus pair, something along those lines. It's not looking that good, but we don't really have that much money left. Even if he does have a flush, we still have equity against that. We can draw to a full house. And like I said, he doesn't always have to have a flush here. So I just go ahead and call it off, getting the price that I am. The river bricks out, and sure enough, he rolls over the king high flush. I think my call on the turn is fine. I like the fact that I checked it to him, allowed him to make a play at the pot if he doesn't happen to have a flush. I think we just fold him out. I think we fold out all worse hands when we do bet on the turn. So checking seems optimal. Check calling seems fine given the price, given the money behind, and pretty straightforward at that point, but certainly could have found a fold pre-flop. All right, gonna hop back in there, stick it with a PLO. It's the biggest game that's running here. There's the 2-5 no limit. It's definitely more within my comfort zone as far as skill level. When I'm playing the PLO, I'm just looking to mix it up really. I feel like I have a slight edge in the various lineups that exist in Pot Limit Omaha. With that being the biggest game on offer here, I feel like that's the game that I want to play. I want to push myself a little bit, just get more experience in the PLO, even though it's not my game of expertise. As you can probably tell by these hand histories, I want to keep these hand histories to a minimum. I know there's a lot of people that don't even understand how PLO works, the mechanics of it, the rules even, and my explanations of the hands is marginal at best. So that's where I'm at, hopping back in the 125 PLO. Stuck a little bit at the moment, but back to battle.
There you go. Thanks.
Wrapping up the session with my buddy JJ.
What's up, YouTube?
JJ YouTube. Member of the infamous text message group. JJ used to live in Vegas, was on the grind in my games pretty regularly. Now he's on the grind here in Cincinnati, Ohio, playing the 125 mostly, right?
Pot Limit Omaha, the great game.
The PLO, the 125. He's a PLO reg. I think that's cooler to be a PLO reg than it is to be a no limit reg these days. We'll have to ask him about PLO once we get to our destination. Destination, Goodfellas Pizza, right? Goodfellas Pizzeria. So, sorry about that. I just recorded about a minute and a half of me interviewing JJ and forgot to press record on the camera. Sorry about that.
It's all good.
I didn't mean to waste your time. I know your time is valuable. Because as we were saying, JJ is a winning PLO player. And I lost 850 in the game tonight. JJ won 1100, you said?
About 11, yep.
Good job. As I was saying, to nobody, JJ used to live in Vegas, grinded the same stakes, same games, pretty much. Moved away, what did you say?
Left about 2 years ago, and I was in Vegas for the previous 5 years. Moved to here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and been playing PLO for about a year and a half or so now.
Would you say that you are happier grinding poker outside of Vegas, just generally?
No question. Typically in Vegas, you're playing against 5 to 7 other professionals on any given day. Outside of Vegas, you're looking at maybe 1 to 3 pros, depending on what stakes you play in the game. And generally, they're just much softer games. I do not miss Vegas poker at all. I do not miss No Limit at all. So I'm pretty happy to be back closer to home in Ohio and play little cards.
Do you miss anything about Las Vegas?
I miss my friends, people. Other than that, not a whole lot.
That's about it? Nothing about like the city itself or anything?
Not at all.
Not at all.
I got my fill for 5 years.
Proper Midwestern boy, back at home, back in his roots. Do you think PLO is kind of like the game of the day if you go outside of Las Vegas, or at least around here?
Definitely here. It's very popular here in Cincinnati. A lot of people travel to play. People come from all over. They come from Louisville, Lexington, Indianapolis, even Columbus in Ohio. People even sometimes travel from places like Michigan or Florida to come play. It's kind of the gambling hub of the Midwest for PLO.
Yeah. Does it matter that there's just far less tourism here compared to a place like Las Vegas, where there's just so many tourists, such a big overturn of just people in the game, people that you don't know, that you've never played with before? Does it matter that you're playing with the same people, the same smaller player pool? What effect do you think that has, if any?
I guess as a professional, I love it. I mean, it does get old playing with the same faces day in, day out, but at the same time, you also get to learn their tendencies in a lot of detail, and you just kind of, I'm able to better adjust to them than they are to me. So that definitely plays to my advantage a lot.
Yeah. Do you think I should move to Cincinnati, Ohio?
Absolutely, man. Let's do it.
All right, I'll consider it. I'll think about it. So there's so many different entertainment options in Las Vegas. There's probably more options in Las Vegas than your average Midwestern town, places like Michigan or Ohio or whatever. But I feel like if you're like constantly taking advantage of those options, then it's probably not that good anyway. Like, it's probably not that good for your professional life, and there's really only so much you can do. So like, even though there might be less options here in Cincinnati, I'm sure there's still like plenty of cool bars and stuff like that, good restaurants, different entertainment venues, and there's sports teams and all that stuff. But I feel like if you are taking advantage of it almost like every night, 6 or 7 nights a week, it's probably not a good idea anyway.
Not good for the bankroll, not good for the lifestyle. You're out every night partying, and before you know it, you're on the Andrew schedule, and you're waking up at 5 p.m., getting to the tables at 11 p.m. And it's definitely easy to get sucked into the Vegas lifestyle a lot. Thankfully, when I was there, I did a pretty good job of avoiding those pitfalls and not getting into the vices that a lot of people get sucked into in Vegas.
You're probably even more level-headed than I am. I think some people look at me as if I'm like level-headed.
I've seen the dark side of Andrew. I've seen it before.
They probably want a story if you're gonna say that. I don't know if you have any. I don't know if you have any stories. I don't know if we really need a story.
I remember your first 2 years in Vegas. I wasn't present for any of these, but it would be like through text or the group chat that you would be sucked into the like. What was your game of choice? Roulette? What did you play in the pit?
Probably craps.
Craps? Yeah, I remember you getting into some trouble at the craps table, and then I think you've since kicked it a little bit, but
I've kicked it a lot.
That was one of those vices I was talking about. That can get you in trouble, and even a great player like Andrew, if you just have one vice, it can actually really slow your progress moving forward.
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty happily over any of those tendencies, but I still really
poker from here and there.
Yeah, but I try to stick to plus EV video poker. I think my biggest vice is still like just going out like with friends or with Boosie and just having a night out. And if it was up to me, I would still do that like a lot more. I mean, it's up to me, but if I could have my way, I would do that a lot more frequently. And if I wasn't worried about the effect that it would have on professional life and win rate and all that stuff, I would be out on the town a lot more often. But I guess like after 8 years or whatever, you start to do better for yourself, get sick of hangovers a little bit. When you get to my age, because you're still pretty young, when you get to my age, you have to deal with hangovers, crippling hangovers. The term crippling comes to mind. All right, so speaking of win rate and poker stuff and being a good professional, I do want to get your opinion on at least one hand here. Since I'm not the most, I don't have the most experience in PLO, haven't done that much lab work whatsoever. So you're gonna have to be the expert here. I mean, I don't know if this hand is really that complicated, but I'm pretty sure I screwed it up. I have ace, king, king, 6 double suited under the gun, and I make it 15. There's 2 calls, and the small blind makes it 80. And the big blind cold calls. The small blind only has like $150 total or something. We're pretty, I don't know, we're maybe like 200 big blinds effective with the big blind. And the big blind is, you could say he's an action player. He likes to see a lot of flops, doesn't like folding pre-flop that often. I mean, I guess this is like decision number 1 is whether or not to 4-bet. I feel like the small blind hasn't been 3-betting like at all, and I feel like his hand is pretty face up, even though we have an ace. Feels like he's pretty likely to have aces, but my thinking is that the big blind likes to peel so much, and my hand is pretty premium, that if I do 4-bet, he's going to call out of position so much that it's going to be a pretty good situation either way. Plus, there's the small chance that, or not small, I don't know how small the chance, but some chance that the small blind doesn't have aces. So what do you think about flatting versus 4-betting there?
Generally, I think a better play is to just go ahead and pot it. Get as much money in as you can. It is high variance. Like, you could definitely just flat call to take a lower variance route.
Yeah.
I feel like in PLO, especially live PLO, you can take high variance routes or you can take low variance routes, and it's really about how much you want to push your edge.
Yeah.
So I think in this instance, especially with the big blind, like given how much action he is and the fact that he probably will call a 4-bet,
Yeah.
pretty much double suited kings is like a top 2% hand.
Right.
So I would be 4-betting all day and just, you know, see what the flop brings and go from there.
Yeah, so that was my thoughts pretty much exactly. So I go ahead and 4-bet to $350. The small blind is all in, and as expected, the big blind calls. So I'm not sure exactly, but I think I have somewhere around 850. It's like around a pot size bet, maybe a little bit less, something like that. There's a side pot that we're going heads up to. There's something like $250 in the side pot. So the flop comes queen 9-8 rainbow, but we do have 2 backdoor flush draws. So the big blind leads out for pot. He just pots it. And the question is, call off or fold?
That is one of the worst imaginable flops that I could think of.
Right.
Even if he has one pair with a straight draw, you're pretty much flipping.
Right.
So he could be jamming hands like pair plus straight draw, things like that. He would jam a lot of 2 pairs. He might jam a set. You are in a bad spot here. I think you did your job pre-flop. Sometimes in Hold'em, like all you can do is just put as much money in you can, and when you have a bad flop or a bad situation, you got your money in good when you could, and then if you're in a bad spot, just go ahead and let it go.
Yeah.
The two backdoor flush draws doesn't really do a whole lot, especially when you're calling off for your whole stack. When you're talking about peeling with money behind, backdraw doors matter more, but in this situation, they really don't at all. And you're in a bad spot here. Even if you are technically ahead at the time, you are pushing an extremely small edge, and a lot of the time you're just roasted.
All right. Well, yeah, that was pretty much my thought. Aside from the fact, though, that he's like such an action player, and there's the side pot there. So like if he does get me to fold, obviously he wins, or he has. It helps with his equity. He can win something basically. It's not dry. It'd be different if it was a dry side pot, obviously, but. So like that combined with the fact that he's an action player, he's aware of all those things, and he's got a pretty wide range, I think. But we could pretty easily be pretty crushed here, drawing extremely slim, and when we aren't, we're usually pretty close to flipping. Right. So that was my thoughts. I folded painfully, extremely painfully. I folded, and I don't know what it ran out, but the small blind had aces as expected. And they were good. So I think it ran out like 2 low cards, rainbow.
So that's probably exactly what he had, some kind of pair plus a jack or a 10 in his hand.
Right.
And
yeah, he definitely, I mean, it's pretty hard for him to like not have pretty good equity.
Right.
I don't think it's like impossible for us to have him crushed. So, so that was that. That was my sad hand history story, really. I'm glad that you made me feel a little better about folding, even though it ended up being the winning hand that I folded. But that's what happens sometimes, you know? You know, JJ?
I feel you.
See ya. Goodfellas Pizzeria. Recommended. Good spot, JJ.
Thanks, man. Glad you enjoyed it.
Cincinnati expert. It's good to have a Cincinnati expert when you're in Cincinnati.
Summertime. Put up a stage right where those porta potties are. They've had Big X here. It was a couple years ago. Killers were here.
All right, back on the old rooftop here. In case you haven't noticed, I highly recommend parking on the rooftop whenever you visit a casino parking structure. Best views. And really, it's all about the views. It's all about the little things in life, such as views. Parted ways with JJ. Probably see him back in Vegas during the World Series. Said he's probably gonna come out for a couple events. The PLO, probably. By the way, this is what I'm rolling in during this Midwestern road trip. I don't really recommend. So that about does it for this Midwestern adventure of April 2017. Multi-purpose, for sure. Did really well in the sessions downtown Detroit. Very happy about that. Gave a little bit back here in Ohio over the past couple nights, but that's the way it goes regardless. Regardless of how you do, regardless of past sessions, regardless of any sort of streak, there's always going to be some downs for every up. So nothing devastating by any means, and some pretty normal ebbs and flows, I would say. But really happy with the poker overall on this trip. So it's been a long time since I've been back in Vegas, but that's where we're flying to tomorrow. Back in the desert, back on the Vegas Strip. Some fun things to come from Las Vegas, Nevada. Nevada. Thanks for coming with me on this Ohio exploration of fun and gambling and driving and drinking and pizza and droning.